The Path of Kriya Yoga, Video 10, Initiation. Initiation can be defined to mean new beginning or a new start. For some, it's considered an opportunity to be born again. But really, what I deem initiation to be more than anything is an attitude where we are willing to affirm our conviction and our enthusiasm to move forward with a new understanding, with new learning, and with a new appreciation for what is of benefit. When we look at how Paramahansa Yogananda talks about his receiving instruction in Kriya Yoga practices and principles, well, first of all, he grew up in a family where both his parents were initiates of Sri Lahiri Mahasaya. And at a very young age, Paramahansa Yogananda himself was inclined to meditate quite a lot. And so it's natural to think that perhaps he received some instruction or guidance from his father or his mother. Later in his life, after having tried to run off to the Himalayas, his father decided to get a Sanskrit tutor, one who was a disciple of Lahiri Mahasaya. And so rather than spending his time learning Sanskrit, Paramahansa Yogananda at a young age used this time to question and discuss with the sage, the initiate of Sri Lahiri Mahasaya, on the principles of Kriya Yoga, the nature of life. And they spent a good deal of time meditating together. So again, it's natural to think that a young Yogananda received instruction into Kriya Yoga practices. Later then, at the age of 14, he met Sri Yukteswar. And it wasn't until that point that he considered himself to have received formal initiation into the Kriya Yoga tradition. Now, all along, we can wonder as to whether or not any of the previous instruction that Paramahansa Yogananda might have received was an initiation or not. But what it seems to be is that it wasn't until he had met his master that he considered initiation to have occurred. And for him, this was the opportunity to receive instruction and to receive guidance from a guru, a teacher who was going to help him with his rebirth and going to guide him through the initial stages of his new life as a Kriya Yoga practitioner until he was eventually mature enough, emotionally and spiritually, to be able to live his spiritual life as an adult. But the reason I refer to initiation as being an attitude is because when in the Autobiography of a Yogi, we also see an example where Paramahansa Yogananda, when he was in his teens, was traveling with a friend of his to Vrindavan, I believe. And there he heard shouts from somebody on the street who was calling him, a stranger who was calling out his name. And the stranger insisted that young Yogananda was his master. And so Yogananda spent some time with the individual, half an hour or so, sharing with him the principles and practices of Kriya Yoga as taught by Lahiri Mahasaya. Now, I don't believe Yogananda ever saw the individual ever again, but for that individual, that was his initiation into Kriya Yoga, and that was initiation by his master. And so that individual demonstrated an attitude where I am open to receiving whatever instruction you are about to give me, and I'm willing to apply it with conviction, trust, and enthusiasm, motivation, and diligence. And for me, this is what initiation is. It's an attitude of receiving instruction with openness and trust and an enthusiasm to apply what has been taught and to experience the benefit of the teaching for oneself. Now, when we talk about initiation into the Kriya Yoga tradition, different teachers will go about initiating in different ways. Sometimes initiation can be informal, or sometimes it can be more formal. Sometimes initiation can be as part of a larger group, or it can be done on a one-to-one personal basis. So in each regard, what is happening is that there's a conveying of the knowledge, and then there is opportunity for the individual to just confirm or reaffirm their conviction, their commitment, and their motivation. So when different teachers initiate within this tradition, within the tradition of Kriya Yoga, they may be inclined to share information to varying degrees. So what's called the first Kriya initiation, what individuals receive in terms of instruction might be different depending on the teacher. Usually the first Kriya initiation is pretty much the same across the board with all teachers within this tradition. But some teachers stop there and they don't offer any more. Others will offer an initiation to a second Kriya. And really this is about sharing a more advanced information at a time which is suitable for the practitioner. And then others will offer initiation to a third Kriya and a fourth Kriya and so on. Some teachers don't make a big deal about this. They'll just share the information, but it's not a ritual of any kind or any kind of formal initiation. It's just an imparting of the knowledge. So really, when we think of initiation, we're thinking about it in terms of our own attitude. And if it's a formal initiation process, well, then there's usually a bit of a ritual about the whole thing. And this helps us to, through certain symbology, to be reminded of what we are actually doing. We're endeavoring to surrender our sense of self to the absolute. And we're reaffirming our own commitment to applying the knowledge so as to facilitate that surrendering. And so the ritual, where it might include giving flowers or fruit, or in some cases a donation of some kind, that all of this is symbolic of us relinquishing our old attitudes and embracing a new attitude. And so this is, from my perspective, the purpose of initiation.